My wife secretly borrowed $150, $0 from her boss and used it to buy her sister's house, then lied about it during our divorce, and now she's claiming I'm entitled to half the property we never agreed on. Can I really lose everything over her betrayal? I never thought my wife, Lisa, would turn out to be the kind of person who would betray me so blatantly. Honestly, I thought we had a solid marriage, 2 kids, a house, a decent life. But then I started noticing things that didn't add up. Small stuff at first, missed calls, her being oddly secretive with her phone, staying late at work more often than usual. Nothing concrete, but enough to prick my suspicions. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, so I kept quiet, trying to give her the benefit of the doubt. One evening, I came home early from work because I was feeling off. I walked into the house and immediately noticed the atmosphere was different. The living room was too quiet and her phone was on the coffee table, buzzing nonstop. I saw a message pop up from someone named Mark, and my stomach sank. It wasn't just a friendly text. It was flirty, suggestive, something about meeting up, catching a movie, maybe more. I froze, heart pounding. My wife was sitting on the couch, scrolling her phone like nothing was wrong, but I could see the flush on her cheeks, the slight tremor in her hands. I confronted her right then and there. I asked who Mark was, and her eyes darted away. She tried to brush it off, saying it was just a coworker, nothing serious, but I could tell she was lying. The way she avoided my gaze, the way her voice cracked when she denied everything, it all added up. I pressed her further, demanding the truth, and she finally lost her temper. Said I was overreacting, that I was paranoid, that she didn't need some guy to make her happy. She had me, didn't she? But her words felt hollow, like she was trying to cover her tracks. That night I couldn't sleep. The seed of doubt had been planted deep. Over the following weeks, I noticed more strange behaviors. She was secretive about her phone, deleting messages whenever I got near. She would leave her laptop open, quickly closing tabs when I entered the room. Her excuses ranged from working late to stress at work, but I knew better. I found receipts in her purse for dinners with Mark and even a hotel booking. She told me she was just catching up with friends, but her stories never quite added up. I started digging through her stuff, trying to find proof, and I stumbled upon her bank statements. That's when I saw it. An enormous transfer of money from her boss, about $150, $0, paid into a joint account. I didn't understand it at first, but then I remembered her talking about her boss, Mr. Carter, a wealthy, powerful guy. I thought maybe it was a bonus or a loan, but the timing was suspicious. The money was used to buy her sister's house, she said, but I had no idea she borrowed that much. And then she lied about it during our divorce, claiming she had the money saved up from her job. Liar. I felt like I'd been hit by a truck. The betrayal was worse than I expected. Not only was she cheating on me, but she was also hiding massive amounts of money. Money that she used to buy her sister's house without my knowledge or consent. The fact that she lied about the whole thing during the divorce process made me furious. She was claiming I was entitled to half the property, which she insisted was joint property. But the truth was she'd been sneaking around, lying and using my trust to cover her tracks. The more I uncovered, the more I realized I was living with a different person altogether, someone manipulative, selfish, and utterly dishonest. I couldn't believe I married someone who would do this to me, to our family. I was furious, heartbroken, and honestly feeling completely lost. After I found out about the money and the affair, everything changed. I started seeing Lisa in a different light. The woman I thought I knew was gone, replaced by someone cold and calculating. I couldn't sleep at night, replaying every argument, every missed sign, every time I brushed off my gut feeling. It was like I had been blind for years, and now that I saw the truth, I couldn't unsee it. The betrayal cut deep, but what hurt even more was how she lied so effortlessly, as if I was just some obstacle in her game. I decided I had to confront her again, face to face, and get some answers. So one Saturday morning, I sat her down in the kitchen. I was calm, but inside I was boiling. I told her I knew about the money, about her borrowing $150, $0 from her boss, about how she used it to buy her sister's house, and how she lied about it all during the divorce proceedings. Her face didn't change much, but her eyes flickered with something darker, Guilt, maybe, or just her usual bitchy defiance. She scoffed at me, rolling her eyes. "You're overreacting, Tom. It's not that big of a deal. She needed help and I helped her, that's all. You're just jealous because I had to do something for my family and you're too weak to understand that." Her tone was condescending, like I was the one at fault for uncovering her secrets. I told her she was full of shit, that I knew she'd been cheating on me with Mark, and that she'd lied about the money to cover her ass. That's when she snapped. "You don't know what you're talking about," she spat. "You're just paranoid, Tom. You think every woman is out to cheat on you. Maybe if you paid more attention to your own shortcomings, you wouldn't be so miserable." That's when the mask cracked a little. She was furious, her face twisted in anger, her voice rising. "I did what I had to do. You're just too stupid to see it. I don't owe you anything anymore. I've moved on. If you think you're entitled to half my sister's house, then you're even more deluded than I thought." I was stunned. Her words hit me like a punch in the stomach. She was openly admitting she lied, cheated, and manipulated everything. I realized she had no intention of stopping, no remorse. All her talk about helping her family was just a cover for her greed. She'd borrowed money from her boss, lied about it, and used it to buy her sister's house, all behind my back. And now she was claiming I had a right to it, even though I never agreed to any of this. The betrayal felt like a betrayal of everything we'd built together. I left the kitchen that day feeling numb. I couldn't believe I married someone so ruthless. I thought about the years we spent together, the good times, the plans we made, the trust I thought we had, all gone. I knew I had to do something, but I wasn't sure what yet. I was angry, yes, but also deeply hurt. How could she do this to me? How could she lie to my face, cheat on me, and then turn around and claim I was the one in the wrong? The weight of it all was crushing. I realized I was no longer just fighting for my marriage, but fighting for my dignity. In the days that followed, I felt like I was walking around in a fog. Everything was a blur, trying to process the betrayal, the lies, and the sudden upheaval of my life. I kept replaying that confrontation in my mind, trying to find some clarity, some justification for what she'd done. But all I could see was her bitchy smirk, her dismissive attitude, and the way she acted like I was just some obstacle she needed to get past. The more I thought about it, the angrier I got, but underneath that anger was a deep, aching sadness. I decided I needed to get some legal advice. I wasn't going to let her walk away with everything she'd secretly bought behind my back. I contacted a lawyer, and after a few days of digging through documents and bank statements, I learned the full extent of her manipulation. The $150, $0 she borrowed from her boss was not just a loan, it was a calculated move. She used that money to buy her sister's house, claiming it as her own property, and then lied about it during our divorce. She insisted it was a gift, a family favor, but the bank statements and the legal documents told a different story. What made it worse was the way she twisted the story to make herself look innocent. She told her friends and even her family that I was just some jealous, controlling husband trying to ruin her reputation. She painted herself as the victim, claiming her sister's house was a gift from her boss, Mr. Carter, and that I had no claim over it. That's when I realized she had no remorse, no intention of taking responsibility. She was good at lying, better than I thought. She'd spun a web of deceit so thick, I wondered how I ever believed her. Meanwhile, I was trying to hold myself together. The betrayal had shattered my trust, not just in her but in everything we had built. I started to question whether I even knew who she was anymore. Was she always this manipulative, or did she become this person just to cover her own ass? The thought of losing everything, my home, my kids' stability, because of her greed and lies was unbearable. I knew I had to act fast if I wanted to protect what was left of my life. I began preparing for a fight, not just in court but emotionally. I couldn't let her get away with this, not after everything. It was around this time that I found out she'd been secretly seeing Mark, her boss's nephew, for months. She told me she was working late or visiting her sister, but she was sneaking around with him. I caught her one night, coming home late, her lipstick smudged, her hair messy. I asked her outright and she didn't deny it. She just looked at me with that bitchy smirk and said, "It's none of your business. I do what I want. You're too stupid to see that I've been planning this for a long time." That was the moment I knew I couldn't trust her anymore. She was a master manipulator, and I was just a pawn in her game. I felt betrayed, furious, and utterly helpless. I was trying to hold my life together while she was out there, secretly screwing around and scheming her way to more money and power. It was like I was living with a stranger, someone who lied, cheated, and used me as a pawn in her twisted plans. I started to wonder if I'd ever really known her at all. All I knew was that I had to fight, not just for the property or the money, but for my dignity. I couldn't let her win, not after all this. The betrayal was a blow I wasn't sure I'd ever recover from, but I knew I had to try. After I gathered enough evidence and spoke to the lawyer, I realized I needed to act fast. Lisa was still acting bitchy, throwing her weight around, pretending she was the victim, but I wasn't buying any of it anymore. The more she lied, the clearer it became that she had no intention of stopping her manipulative ways. She'd borrowed. That money bought her sister's house and lied about it all, thinking she could just spin her way out of it. Well, I wasn't going to let her get away with it. One day, I decided I'd had enough. I set up a meeting with her, her lawyer, and mine. I wanted everything out in the open. I told her I knew about the money, the house, the affair, and her lies. I told her I was filing for full custody of the kids because I couldn't trust her anymore. Her face twisted into that typical bitchy sneer, but I was done playing nice. I laid out the facts, backed by the documents I'd collected, and made it clear I was serious about fighting for what was rightfully mine. She sat there fuming, trying to look innocent. "You're just jealous, Tom. You're bitter because I've moved on. You think you can threaten me with some legal bullshit, but I have everything under control." Her voice was sharp, her tone bitchy, but I saw through it. She was scared, and she knew she had pushed too far. I told her she could spin her lies all she wanted, but the truth was coming out, and I wasn't going to let her manipulate her way out of this mess. Over the next few weeks, things escalated. She started to lash out, calling me names, accusing me of trying to ruin her life. She told everyone I was an abusive, jealous husband who couldn't handle her success. But I had the evidence, and I knew the truth. I also found out she'd been secretly trying to sell the house she bought with her boss's money, my money, really, without telling me. I even caught her trying to transfer ownership to her sister's name. That was the final straw. I told her if she didn't stop, I'd take her to court and expose everything. Meanwhile, her bitchy attitude only got worse. She'd scream at me, call me insecure, say I was just jealous of her success. But I didn't care about her trying to gaslight me anymore. I knew what she was doing. She was trying to cover her tracks, manipulate the situation, and keep all the money for herself. I started to see her for what she really was. A selfish, manipulative woman who'd do anything to get what she wanted, even if it meant destroying our family in the process. The day I served her with the court papers was a turning point. I saw her face turn even bitchier when she realized I was serious. She yelled, called me every name in the book, and stormed out of the house. But I felt a strange sense of relief. I'd finally taken control of the situation. I knew it wouldn't be easy, and I knew she'd try to spin more lies, but I also knew I had the truth on my side. I was tired of her lying, cheating, and scheming. This was about more than money now. It was about standing up for myself and protecting what little dignity I had left. The court date came faster than I expected, and I was ready. I had all the evidence, bank statements, emails, texts, receipts, and I knew how to present my case. Lisa, of course, showed up with her usual bitchy attitude, trying to act innocent and superior. She sat there, smirking at me as if she already had everything under control. But I wasn't about to let her pull any more tricks. When the judge asked about the property, Lisa started her usual lies, claiming she bought her sister's house with her own money, that she had no idea I thought it was a joint asset, and that I was just trying to ruin her. I stood up, pulled out the bank statements and the transfer receipts, and laid everything out for the court. I explained how she borrowed the money from her boss, how she used it to buy the house, and how she lied during the divorce proceedings. I also pointed out her attempts to transfer ownership to her sister's name, trying to hide the truth. Her face fell, and for the first time I saw genuine panic. She tried to argue, but her words sounded hollow. The lawyer for the other side tried to spin it, but I had the evidence. The judge looked at the documents, asked questions, and finally ruled in my favor. The house was considered part of the marital assets, and Lisa's attempts to hide or transfer it were deemed fraudulent. She was ordered to return the money, and the house was to be sold, with the proceeds split fairly. Her bitchy smirk disappeared, replaced by a look of contempt. She stormed out of the courtroom, yelling about how I was ruining her life, how I was a jealous, insecure husband who just wanted to control her. But I felt a strange sense of relief. I had fought hard and I'd won. It wasn't just about the money anymore. It was about standing up to her manipulations, exposing her lies, and reclaiming what was rightfully mine. In the aftermath, I started to rebuild. I filed for full custody of the kids, knowing Lisa's manipulative nature would only put them at risk. I also began the process of divorcing her formally. It was messy, filled with her bitchy outbursts and attempts to sway the judge, but I stayed firm. I couldn't let her get away with everything she'd done. She'd betrayed me, lied to my face, and used her power and money to manipulate everyone around her. But I'd fought back, and I was determined to come out of this stronger. Looking back, I realize how much I learned from all this. Trust is fragile, and some people will do anything for money or power. I should have seen the signs earlier, but I was too blind in love, or maybe too naive. Now I know better. If you're in a similar situation, don't ignore the red flags. Gather your evidence, stand your ground, and fight for what's right. Because in the end, betrayal like this can destroy you if you don't take control. But it can also teach you to be stronger, more cautious, and more aware of the people you let into your life. Since everything came crashing down, I've spent a lot of time reflecting on what it all meant. Honestly, I feel like I've been through a war, emotionally, mentally, financially, and I'm still standing. Lisa's betrayal taught me some brutal lessons about trust and deception, but it also made me realize how much I'd been letting slide for too long. I was blinded by love, by the idea that she was my partner, my wife, the mother of my children. Turns out, she was just a master manipulator who played me for a fool to cover her own greed and lies. The aftermath has been rough. I won the legal battle, but I know the scars will take time to heal. Seeing her bitchy, entitled attitude during the proceedings, her constant attempts to spin stories and blame me, made me realize how far gone she was. I can't say I hate her. I just feel disappointed that I ever married someone so selfish. But I also learned not to trust blindly anymore. I've become more cautious about who I let into my life, more aware of the red flags I previously ignored. My kids are still adjusting, and I worry about how all this mess has affected them. I try to be the stable parent, the one who keeps everything grounded. Lisa's out of the picture, trying to spin her lies to everyone, but I don't care anymore. I know the truth. I've fought for my rights, and I've protected what's mine. That's what matters now. I focus on rebuilding my life piece by piece and making sure my children see what integrity and honesty look like, things Lisa never really understood. Looking back, I wish I'd seen the signs earlier. The secretive texts, the late nights, the suspicious money transfers, they all pointed to something rotten. But I was too trusting, too in love to see it. If I could give anyone advice, it's this: don't ignore the red flags. Trust your gut, protect yourself, and don't be afraid to fight for what's right. Sometimes the biggest betrayals come from the people closest to you, and you have to be prepared to stand your ground, no matter how bitchy or manipulative they become. In the end, I've come out of this stronger. I've learned to value honesty over appearances, to be cautious with who I trust, and to never let anyone manipulate me again. It's been a hell of a ride, but I'm finally moving forward, better, wiser, and more aware of what real loyalty and integrity look like. And I'll never let someone like Lisa take that away from me again.